Threat detected.
Ancient sands, heed my command.
You know what happens to a toad when it's struck by lightning?
And reclaim these relics of
I think I'm kinda gay.
Morphin' time!
Kinda gay.
Same thing that happens to everything else.
If the apocalypse comes, feed me, feed me, feed me, feed me, feed me.
Welcome back to Real Hot Nerd Shit, a pop culture podcast where real hot nerds talk about real nerd shit. I'm your host, Ryan.
And I'm your host, Shauna.
And on this episode of Real Hot Nerd Shit, we are finally wrapping up the View Askewniverse with the queer, nerd, genius, beautiful film, Chasing Amy.
Oh, and to do this, we have my amazing and wonderful spouse, Dara. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
Oh,
Hello.
wait. Yes. Filmed in front of a live studio audience. Welcome, Dara. How are you? How's it going? How are you surviving, hurtling towards fascism?
Dealing with the dumpster fire daily, balancing that with good nerd shit. Quite honestly.
Look, that's all we really can do is just continue to try our hardest, and throw bricks.
Yeah.
So this is your first. We haven't had you on yet, right?
No.
Great.
Shockingly.
Great. So now we get to learn more about you. So, we define a nerd as someone who is like weirdly knowledgeable, but also passionate about something. And sometimes people find that thing uncool, but who gives a fuck? So what are you a nerd about, Dara?
I definitely a nerd about a lot of things. I think specifically Godzilla stuff, cosplay, niche portions of queer media, not necessarily the entirety of a show's universe, but like definitely all the ships, that kind of thing, fossils,
So a lover boy at heart, not interested in the plot, just interested in the ships. I do have two follow-up questions.
Yeah.
Godzilla stuff? I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a giant Godzilla in our living room for a reason.
Is it real?
No, I mean, how could it be real? Godzilla is fake.
I don't know, Dara. It's a complicated household.
Yeah, I didn't have cable growing up, but I did have access to a lot of Godzilla movies from the library. So I have watched an extremely large quantity of really bad Godzilla movies.
And is the relationship between Godzilla and fossils, is there a connection there, or just...
I mean, intellectually, maybe. Never really thought about it like that. I think I was just one of those kids that wanted to be a paleontologist, so there's probably a Venn diagram in there somewhere, but
yeah,
I've never actually thought about it like that.
A kid with autism.
You in that reptile shirt as a kid? Like, I just think of that. Like, you had just the very...
Peak me at like 11 was I had a black t-shirt, one of those ones that had the iguana ripping on it.
Oh.
Yeah, that was like my favorite shirt for all my tween years.
I absolutely love it. And you should get like a tattoo of it with it like ripping through your flesh, like those, really cool tattoos. Just for the memory of it.
That's so not my tattoo taste, but it is very tempting for the amusement factor.
Right on your growing bicep too.
No.
But you have to keep the trash stash. It has to stay just like that with your iguana ripping through tattoo, and you can only wear cutoffs regardless of the time of year, period, end of story.
That one's done and taken care of.
Right, I do own a lot of cutoffs.
I mean, this one came pre-sleeveless, so but it's hot as fuck, and I'm only in sleeveless. If I'm not in a meeting, I'm wearing a sleeveless t-shirt. And even when I'm in meetings, sometimes I have this little sweater, and it just looks like I'm not wearing a sleeveless t-shirt, because versatility at its best.
Yeah.
So now that you're sleeveless in Seattle...
Shut up, Shauna. They're sleeveless in Northeast Ohio, just like the rest of the queers. So it's been a little minute. Life happened. I turned 36. We have a new reigning queen of RuPaul's Drag Race.
Mhm.
Pride happened. I live in Chicago now. Things have changed quite a bit since our last recording. Let's get caught up, starting with the upcoming James Gunn Superman film. We've started to get some glimpses into how Cleveland will be utilized. Shauna, first thoughts on seeing Kal-El? No, seeing Kal-El fly around, the Guardians and fucking Key Tower and shit. What do you think?
I think it's cool as heck. Like, I
Yeah.
think they're doing a really great job of utilizing Cleveland as this movie making space. I love that I can see so many wonderful, like the beautiful shot of the arcade,
Mhm.
and I think they're really taking advantage of how beautiful our city is, and I love seeing it.
Yeah. Dara, have you watched the trailer yet? Did Shauna make you watch it? I don't know
Yeah,
if.
yeah.
Oh,
I think it's taking much better advantage of it than how the Avengers use Cleveland. Like I feel like Avengers dress Cleveland up really hard to make it look as little like Cleveland as possible.
sure.
Feel like they're really embracing it in a different kind of way, which is cool.
Yeah, that's a great point. And they didn't really use any like Cleveland like skyline. Like they
No.
used like the Shoreway Bridge and then like in front of Tower City and then some parking structures. Like he is flying around
Well,
Cleveland sky. Yeah.
we are also Germany. When Loki is inside
Yeah.
and they first are confronting him, that is in the
Yeah.
Justice Center. And like I've
Yeah.
walked up and down that staircase.
I mean, same. Wow, I don't think I really remembered that.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
Great.
so when they're in that kind of big ballroom, that's actually our courthouse. So that's kind of
My
cool.
my
It's a
least
vibe.
favorite place in Cleveland is the Justice Center. It's literally the most
That's fair.
depressing fucking place in the entire world. The only thing more
Yeah.
depressing, the Juvenile Justice Center, like way
Mm,
worse.
Yeah.
that's fair.
Yeah.
But hard pivot away from juvenile justice. Let's talk about how gay the ad campaign is between Superman and Lex. Have you all seen these images of them posed?
Oh yeah,
Wait, no, I looked it up quick.
I do love that that's a
Maybe.
thing. I love the like I mean that was always one of my favorite parts was the interplay between what Tom Welling and
Oh
oh, what
yeah.
was it? Michael Rosenbaum on
Yeah, that
Smallville.
guy.
Like they had
Yeah.
such great chemistry together and their friendship turned allies. But also, there's even the element of Lena Luthor and Supergirl had their connections in the
Oh,
CW verse,
Hmm.
where
Sure.
yeah, they called him Supercore, was the ship name.
super core. Oh, like Lex Core.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Got it. I just got caught up on the Harley Quinn cartoon, which I think it wrapped the season months ago, and Lena
Yeah,
Luthor is
we,
the
we still haven't watched it either, and that's saying
yeah.
for
No.
no.
Oh shit, we
Lena
should do
is just
that.
a prominent character. It's not pretty like I don't know if maybe it has lost its zeal as a show, but or maybe it's
Mm,
because I like took a break in the middle of it, but I don't know. It didn't stick for me this time. The season of Harley Quinn.
Well, and I think that maybe it's one of those things where they've had to keep changing it so much every
Mm,
season, where like the last one that we watched was like, and now she's in the Bat family because why not? And like
wild, so weird, and I hated her
just to
costume
give
too.
a like artificial some sort of conflict between her and Poison Ivy, which I
Sure.
appreciate, but also like it's very
yeah.
sitcomical. And I'm glad that a show can have an okay fourth or fifth season because frankly not
Yeah.
enough shows get the luxury of getting to the point of a mediocre fourth season, fourth or fifth, like however
Agreed.
long it is.
That's real. And a queer show getting a fourth season, like even if it's not
And like
fantastic,
super
I'll take
queer.
that right now. Oh yeah.
Like they be fucking on camera. Well, I mean, it's animated, but
It's yeah.
Um, was somewhat related in terms of new hero media. We have seen Thunderbolts, as we now know, it is the new Avengers. This is back in May. We're recording in June. And I personally, I'm having a hard time pulling apart the discourse of how people talked about it as a film, but then also like um, acknowledge it's like one of the first like predominantly white casts, and like a
Mm,
lot of
Hmm.
these deviations from what Marvel has put in front of us is not that is not as diverse as the rest of the slate has been. Like this is, I mean, obviously Daredevil and Deadpool and Wolverine, which again are also the ones that have been the most positively critically reviewed. Um, but I can't help but wonder the connection between how much energy and attention they put into it versus how people actually receive the media.
that's a really great question because and that's something that, like, when you say it, I was like, oh my gosh, it absolutely is, and I think it is such a good point to remember that who they put on these teams does not have they can pick and choose. They get
Mhm.
to choose what parts of the canon they want to use, accept, embrace. And so the fact that they went with the cast that they did is in and
Mhm.
of itself a statement.
Very
And a
true.
particular statement in this moment in time too. Like
Yeah.
nothing can be unintentional right now.
And Ghost being, I mean, I'm pretty sure Ghost is played by a person of color. They were
Yeah.
vaguely ethnic, but probably the least used character in the Thunderbolts themselves. But I mean, at the end of the day, if the nerds watching it consumed it and actually took in the message of like loneliness as the male epidemic,
Go to
um,
therapy.
go to
Like,
therapy,
at
talk to
least
your
talk to your friends
friends,
about your shit.
like please
Yeah.
God, let some of them have even remotely, because as a person who works really hard on my mental health and works really hard at trying to build up my community, I was like sobbing during that point. Like at the end, this is a spoiler. I'll try to
Ugh.
remember to put a spoiler warning on the episode, but it's like the middle of June and this movie came out like 6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine you listen to this podcast and also haven't seen Thunderbolts / the New Avengers. But if you haven't, spoiler. Um, at the end of it, when uh, Bob, the Sentry, is being taken over by the Void, there's this moment where he's like fighting himself, he's fighting the Void, and the Void is like slowly taking over. And then Yelena runs up behind him and just puts her arms around him. And like, then the rest of the team runs in and puts their arms around them. I could not help but like look to my left and my right at my little freaky fucking friends that are my Thunderbolts. And the move was coming up, and as Shauna can attest, anything that had any emotional weight to it took me down for like the last 6 to 8 weeks of me living in Cleveland. But watching this like literal foretelling of like it is really my community and specifically my chosen family that have fought off the fucking Void in my life, it just was it was so beautiful to see. And I don't even really remember I read the Sentry storyline with the Void, and I don't really remember how it ends, but however it ends, the movie was better. Like that was it was just it was so beautiful.
Gosh, it really was. Like, honestly, it was one of my favorite Marvel movies of late. Like, I really enjoyed it. I thought it had a really, like you said, it had a great heart. I thought most of the characters were really engaging. And frankly, anytime I get more of Yelena, I just want
Mm,
it because she
yeah.
is fantastic. I still need to watch Black Widow, and it's one of those like,
Ooh,
yeah, I know, like I
not
figured out like the
intentional.
Black Widow. Well, like it was at first because I was like, why do I want a Black Widow movie now at the point that it came out? But that's like,
Right,
but
it
now I'm
was
like, I
a
know
great
that
point.
it like is different after I saw Hawkeye, and I was like, all right, so I do actually need to see this, and I just haven't had a chance to like sit down and watch it, but it's on my list of things to do.
Yeah.
It is a really fun movie that would have made me cared about Black Widow a lot longer, a long time ago. Because I mean, I've said it a million times. I never really cared about the Avengers. It was always the X-Men for me.
Oh
And so
yeah.
when the Avengers came out, I was like, okay, so the only girl I have to root for is Scarlett Johansson as a spy. Like, Wah,
with no
wah.
powers, with no
With
like, we're
no
like, all right,
and a bad
Stereotypical
wig.
sexism, seduction, energy,
Exactly.
like
Exactly. Oh my god, I cannot wait because there is a joke that starts in Black Widow that has continued to run about the superhero pose. Yelena absolutely clocks
yes.
Natasha doing the superhero landing. She's like, why did I wish and it's even funnier in the accent. She's like, why every time do you land do you have to do that stupid pose? Like, can't you
I
just
love
land on
that.
your feet? It's so funny. It's so funny. And speaking of hot blondes, Yelena, Sabrina Carpenter discourse, which was that a typo when you sent disc horse to me,
no, it
Shauna?
was
Or
not. It was it
okay,
was it was a I just couldn't like call it discourse because I was like, it's so just like a bunch of
it's a
people
headache.
talking on the internet as with so many
Yeah,
things. And I think it really spoke to like where I stand on it. So in
sure.
case you're unaware, she recently put out an album cover that was called Man's Best Friend, and it had a masculine person in a suit, holding her hair as she looks up down on her knees. And everyone was either up in arms or being like, Yaz Queen Slay, hashtag feminist icon. And there was like very little between the two, even though I actually feel like I'm actually pretty between the two because I think there's good arguments to be made
Same.
for both of like, because I think not everything has to be a thing. Like she can just
Sure.
exist as popcorn, sexually charged imagery affairs, like, because it is what it is. Like,
Yeah.
it's, and her music really isn't even that, like, scandalous, at least, like,
Oh,
from,
I'm not gonna. I sorry. I didn't mean to sigh so
yeah.
loudly. I just do have really strong thoughts, but I want you to finish
No, yeah. And,
your
like, you
intro,
can,
please.
and I know you have strong thoughts on Sabrina Carpenter, but I'm, like, I think I'm mostly just very, like, whatever. She is who she is. Like, I think she's just, like, she doesn't do it for me, but also
Mhm.
I'm probably not the target audience, let's be honest, at the end of the
Yeah.
Mhm.
day. And so, like, but she's fine. Like, I like doing the espresso dance in Fortnite, and that's good enough for me. Like,
Yeah, you do.
So before I jump onto my fucking soapbox, Dara, are you invested at all in the world of Sabrina Carpenter?
Not even a little, truthfully. I'm
Got it.
like, I have seen the discourse. I
Sure.
know what the discourse meme is that looks like a disc on a horse. But that's all I
Yeah.
got. Yeah.
So I am a Sabrina Carpenter fan. I wouldn't say I'm like a super fan. Um, she had a couple of
do super
singles.
fans have names? Is there like a term?
Oh god, sluts. I don't know. I feel like the people they would just call themselves sluts. Like something. I don't know. Sabby cats. Something fucking
The
Gen Z and
nails for
stupid.
the carpenter or something?
Oh,
Like,
Jesuses. They're all messiahs. They're the messiahs. The followers of Carpenter. They are the messiahs. Oh no, they would be the apostles. Sabrina Carpenter's
Yeah.
yeah,
apostles.
there we
So
go.
I really like Sabrina Carpenter. I have had this sort of feeling ever since Espresso went really big and her styling changed from what I very little that I knew, just like a regular pop girl, to this sort of like va va voom 60s big hair, big tits, but still kind of conservative in their bathing suit. Like there is this
A one piece that
sort of
shows off the tits.
exactly. There is
Yeah.
this sort of like progressive, regressive, contemporary trad wife nature about her because everything about her is supposed to be subversive. Like it's supposed to be shocking that she talks so openly about sex and she also, is in charge of her she has autonomy it seems in a lot of ways and it's fun and it's flirty but then you have these other things like, again, the kind of the pseudo conservative way that she is styled. And she has the song Juno, which is literally about like letting a man lock you down by pregnancy. Like the song is a fucking bop until you listen to the lyrics and it's like, I might let you lock me down for life. Like it gives very trad wife. Like
Hmm.
I'm I love my man, but I want to fuck him for my pleasure, not his type shit. Like I'm subservient, which is why that um the Man's Best Friend album cover has this weird tinge to it, because she's not portraying like powerhouse, I'm the boss. Like it gives very like someone described her as like her boop boop no, someone described her as like yoo-hoo boys kind of vibe, and like yoo-hoo boys, like it gives very very that. And that is why I'm kind of torn about it. But then I also had this deeply head ass like stoner realization, to which I have made several people like listen. But in this era, and I think last summer was really kind of like the peak of Sabrina, Chapel, and Charlie XCX being the Powerpuff Girls of pop music. But Sabrina Carpenter feels very much so like a response to Chapel Roan. Like we know that the waves of feminism and even just like progress, there's always a response to it. So Donald Trump was the response to us electing our first black president. Like the way that Chapel Roan has situated herself as a queer woman who is a queer artist performing for queer people, specifically queer women. Like Chapel Roan is accessible to everyone, but she makes her shit for queer women. And Sabrina Carpenter being sort of like the counter to that. Like, you don't want to be, ew, girls, they're so cute and pretty and feminine, but I need peepees. Like, it gives very, you can't have Chapel Roan without a Sabrina Carpenter being formed at the exact same time, which in the case of pop music is not bad, but how they are used is what is frustrating.
And I think that's a really fair, and yeah. No, wait, go ahead, Dara.
No, as I say, it's funny because I wasn't even thinking of there as being like a straight girl, counter to Chapel. I've always thought of Orville Peck as the counter, just because we saw them kind of back to back. So I'm like, oh yeah, here's the girl version, here's the guy version. This is great as a genderqueer person, like here for all the gay music. And I'm like, oh yeah, of course there's straight answers to it. Like
always. The next item on the general banter is Simone Biles flies too close to the sun. Shauna, can you prompt us?
So recently, Olympian gold medalist Simone Biles came out and said this big, like, she came out what felt like very much in support of like trans high school athletes who are being attacked by Riley Gaines, who is famous for finishing in, what was it, 5th place, tying with Leah Thomas. And so she's now made it her life mission to destroy trans women generally, as you do. And so, like, talk about like your best years of your life for college. You're like, I'm going to live in this moment forever. So she's decided to do that. And she's just a real shitheel about it all. She's just terrible. And Simone Biles was very cutting and being like, you are picking on high school kids. Like, I don't know what the answer is, but like, hey, back down. And then she made this kind of like snide comment about how like if anyone looks like a man, like pick on someone your own size, it would be a guy, because she's a very broad-shouldered woman because she's a swimmer. And if you look at it, and I think that is the thing, is if you look at these swimmers, the majority all have these like very broad shoulders because that is what you're exercising. And it just like, I was like, you could transvestigate so many of them, up to and including like there are countless times where people think that Riley Gaines is the trans one, which is very funny to me online. But like, but it's more, but at the end of the day, it doesn't serve anyone to do, and it was a unnecessary take. And so she decided to apologize because, which I get, like, I don't want to stoop this low in how I engage. That would be fair. But in doing so, she also made sure to say, well, you know what, like, you're right, fairness is very important. And that's literally the number one talking point is, well, you can't have inclusion at the sake of fairness, as though those are the two sides. One only wants inclusion and one only wants fairness, as though the literal argument for trans inclusion is that is both fair and inclusive, because that is, I think, part of the crux that often gets ignored because nuance gets lost in all of this. But by ceding that ground, she then just only opened herself up for both more talking points. Like literally in Riley Gaines' pregnancy announcement, she made a crack at Simone Biles because that is just the world that she exists in, that nothing can just be. Everything has to be part of the culture war, even her own fucking pregnancy, because everything's terrible. So,
It's just
and
sad.
I think honestly, the way that Simone Biles apologized, the way that she ceded those kind of talking points and even said, like, well, I don't know if we need to have a separate league in her first post, which was like immediately everyone's like ears went up because if you ever hear the argument, there should be a separate league for trans people, just know that I, playing in multiple queer leagues, at both national and local levels, don't even think I could form a team for any sport with the other trans athletes, both trans men and trans women in them. Couldn't
Yeah.
even do that, let alone a whole league. It's an absolutely inane comment. It's the gif of Milhouse throwing the ball back and forth to himself because he doesn't have one to throw to. That is what a trans league would look like. And it is so
So
frustrating to me when that is made as an argument.
was Simone's comment say like I gotta be honest, I only read like up to the part where she shaded her. I don't even think I knew she apologized. Um so I guess my first thought is like, how do we feel about her being shady? Like obviously she stooped to someone else's level. But I mean Simone is not what were your what are your thoughts on just her taking that final dig to begin with?
I mean, look, I think that stooping to a certain kind of like mocking people for their gendered appearance is, like, it's the like Batman breaking, like, this is the tool of the enemy kind of like, and I kind of generally feel that way about it. That, like, yes, it's like, okay, and like, but like, I think there is something to be said for acknowledging the wide breadth of ways that all women look,
Hmm.
and that there are very clocky cis women who are just as valid.
Hmm.
And I think that in many ways, and I think acknowledging that is one thing, but that wasn't really what Simone was doing. She was just trying to
Right.
be shady and like good, whatever. She's allowed to be frustrated by everything because it's a very frustrating situation. And at the end of the day, her initial point, you're being cruel to children, is the part that got lost in it all. And I think that's what's
Yeah.
frustrating most.
And I would add too that like in this moment we need allies across all movement spaces, and not all those allies are going to be perfect.
Right.
Like at the end of the day, Simone Biles is the most decorated gymnast in history, not just female gymnast, but like gymnast in general. Like
Mhm.
she's fucking awesome, and if she wants to weigh in on the trans sports debate and be like, "Don't hurt children," like I'm gonna take her in whatever other thing she didn't say perfectly. Like, yes, thank you for your support. Like, we can come at you for better wording in the future. Like,
Well,
Right.
and I do wish that her team had reached out to Athlete Ally, had reached out
fair.
to a lot of these orgs who and gotten the information because it is there. And if she
Mhm.
really wanted to come out in support, and I think that's where I think a lot of people were frustrated because you're right. Like and I think that I think there absolutely was too harsh criticism afterwards of Simone Biles' post apology. And with that being said, I also think that we've seen the carpet pulled out from us enough times as we think that, where, we think we have an ally who just pulls the football away. Like, and I think that is the fear that she's like, oh, maybe she did her own research, which is to say that the right wing people with a lot more money came in at her and ended up now, like, I think there is that worry that she's ultimately going to advocate for our exclusion because at the end of the day, if your argument is you should exclude us but nicely, that's not
Hmm.
really being an ally.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I do, and I think the point that Dara made is kind of where I was landing because I giggled when I saw her comment, um, and I think because I want to see her, I have a lot of bias for in her favor. I just consumed it as the thing that I think we were talking about, which is like it's not a point to be lost that this bitch that has a lot of nerve to talk about who can and should be participating in what sports also does not fit the standard typical definition of the body type that a cis woman is, quote, supposed to have. So like, shouldn't you be arguing the other side, girl? Shouldn't you be like fighting for the other cause? But that's not what Simone said, and that is disappointing. And Black women specifically always get a couple of like bonus points for me in terms of the grace that I will extend, because they often start at a deficit in terms of how quickly people will critique them. And so, you know, that's one of those moments where I'm like, oh man, I wish I had her number. I would just like send her a quick text, be like, hey, I have a better way that you could have said that, and we can probably turn it into something even shadier. But
Right.
like, great
Because
job. You were on the right side.
apologizing to this woman only gives her more credibility at the
Right.
end of the day. And I know that wasn't the point, but she doesn't deserve your apology, because
No.
any mean thing you said to her, even if it's not what you would want to say as like a person, it's pales in comparison to the cruelty that she does on a daily basis. And you know what, I'm not in like I'm not a big like we should be cruel to people, but like again, people are going to do what they're going to do.
Right.
But I just really, she did not deserve the legitimacy of even of backing down off of her point. And
No.
I feel like that's where I wish she had just stuck to it, because I think then even if it was a little shaky in the air, that would have helped her stick the landing.
Come on, gymnast references. Um, the final general banter talking point is your little family is getting caught up on old seasons of Drag Race, because I'm gonna say it, me, Uxie, and Ryan fucking put those hooks in Shauna for Drag Race and just like
super
dragged
hard.
her behind us. Let's go, bitch. So tell
Really
me how much
did.
you love Drag Race. Please, I love it.
No, I do. I've really grown to appreciate and enjoy it. Like the art, and I've always loved the art of it, and I've always
Of
found
course.
the entertainment aspect, especially like when it's funny. Like comedy queens and kings have long been favorites of mine personally. And so seeing them get to shine like Jinx Monsoon, and like seeing the evolution there as it's gone forward. So we started at season 3, and I am now on season
Perfectly
9.
reasonable.
So like and like I've just been running through, watched All Stars 1, and it is so fascinating. And I love that like we're now seeing the people who are on this most current season of All Stars. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and what I think is most fascinating for me in this journey, as you know, as we are two trans people watching this, is seeing how the evolution of transness on Drag Race has gone, because it
Mm-hmm.
went from being very like we are the men's, and we are not, we are just impersonators, we are just this like, you know, again like this real like we're to, and it's so like thinking back, because like I came out over a decade ago, and like back when I came out, which is back in season 3, because
Mm-hmm.
like literally like when Carmen Carrera was an egg on Drag Race talking about how she doesn't like boogers, like,
Yeah.
which I still think the like no booger shirt is a really funny thing. Like, but also like I feel like there is like again there's like a meanness to it that I'm like I don't love,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
also there's something kind of funny about it too, just the same, and that like, but you know who, because again she was kind of the winners were all heels, and again because
Right.
it goes back to that one thing that I showed you from Dropout, where like how Drag Race is a lot like pro wrestling,
Oh
and
yeah.
seeing that interplay is so fascinating. But so looking at the like how the transness of it all has evolved from like the, you know, the you've got male segment that is
Mm,
worse, and like between like the use of that and calling RuPaul said the word ladyboy a lot.
a lot.
A
She has
lot.
a song. Her
Horrifying
album
quantity.
she that album in particular, I would have to look. It has a couple of bangers on it, like Click Clack, and like it was like her reintroduction as a recording artist. But it has that song, and it also has a song called Tea Chaser, but with the slur. And it is absolutely wild that we were all just like, "Whee!"
And I'm sure she had no idea. No, like, and again, like, there was even like the joke from like a few seasons ago of like, what's the difference between a drag queen and a trans person is like surgery. And like, and I was like, again,
Fucking
like, just so
medicalist
nuts.
garbage.
Right. Well, that's not even medicalist. It's just not getting it. It's literally just
Well,
like
that
this is
too.
like if you
But
get SRS, like that is the like
yeah,
the difference is, and it's just so ununderstanding. And I know that like he's grown a lot, like, but also
Yeah.
like just the seeing that evolution and the like the very famous like is this a drag queen or is this a cis woman like is not was not a part of it doesn't air on Paramount. They pulled
Yeah.
it.
Yep.
So, and that was like where it finally was like, they were like, okay, we need to change this. And I think that was where, but seeing so many eggy trans women, and like, I'll be honest, like, part of it
so
is like
many.
being like, okay, is she trans? And like, because you know what, like, I will watch it, I'll say, like, and then sure enough, I'll look up, I'm like, oh yeah, so she's so totally transitioned. Okay, cool,
Yeah.
cool. Love that for her.
Yeah,
Like,
a body queen who doesn't want a pad is
Right.
like, yeah,
yeah, it's almost always this like, oh, you just look like a very pretty woman and you always love your body in a way that is like the importance of the natural body
Mhm.
versus the importance of giving the figure. And I'm like, that is
yeah,
absolutely what gives it away for me.
yeah.
So before I want to hear Dara's response too, but a couple of things. There's a Cleveland queen that was notoriously a does not pad queen who has since come out and is now out as a trans woman. But Shauna, you used Eggy, and I was hanging out at the beach with my friend Ryan the other day, and we were I don't remember what we were talking about. Oh, he's a therapist and was talking about how he learns a lot of slang from younger queer people, and he was like, "Yeah, I just learned this expression to get your egg cracked," and I was like, "Huh, I already know what that means." So, Shauno, what does eggy mean, and what does getting your egg cracked, or Dara, either of you, what does it mean to have your egg cracked or to be eggy?
You can have that.
Well, to have your egg cracked is the realization that, oh, maybe I'm actually trans. And thus to be eggy is to be in this pre-transition sense of self where you see the glimpses, where you see like, oh, there's something going on here that's not quite
Mm,
cisgender about you. Because so
mm,
many, and like, and again, that's the other is the way that the language is very like, all right, men, all right, we're gonna be the best women we can be, men, men,
mhm,
men, men, and like
mhm.
it's so fascinating, like because that just wasn't there in this most recent season, and I'm very curious as I continue my watch through when that change happens because you really are starting to see it in the way that they do different challenges and but there's still so much of that real like this is what we do like oh your parents don't know you're a drag queen like and
Right.
it's so like and like as we're dealing with like that era of
Yeah,
of where we were in trans culture where it was really again this is like mainstream gay media
Right.
and there was still that much like and I say ignorance not as a pejorative but just literally like just in the
Yeah.
unawareness of how trans people might be participating in their shows and even as someone literally came out on their show
Right.
and, obviously Carmen Carrera very then famously transitioned and then kind of got, like was on the exile list for it in many or
Yeah.
for speaking up about Rue's treatment of transness and
yeah,
how co-opting a lot of transness in terms of ideas, and like the way that like Michelle Visage talks about padding all the time and like
Right.
you really need
Right.
to pad out your figure. You can't be showing up looking like a boy, but
Right.
also hormones are performance enhancing drugs. Padding
Right.
is okay, can't take estrogen, which is
Yep.
just fascinating.
Dara,
But
what's
also,
been
so
your
many
take?
people could
Oh,
get
sorry.
plastic surgery too.
Oh,
oh
totally.
yeah.
Like go ahead.
No, I'm like it's also interesting because in addition to the number of queens that have come out after the show as binary trans women, it's also interesting how many are also non-binary people too,
Yeah.
and the different ways that that's reflected in their drag, both what they did on the show versus what their drag looks like now if you creep on their socials, and it's a very interesting like community snapshot through time for sure.
Yeah.
Like
I
Jinx
the
Monsoon is a great example.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Like really like saw herself as this like funny little clown, like and didn't really take herself seriously. and now is, an actor, has been on Broadway. And I funny enough, met Jinx Monsoon well before I knew who she was. And so I thought that was neat because she gave the
Yeah.
medals out at the Gay Games in Cleveland. I had no
Yeah.
idea. It is how I spoiled that
There's
Bianca Del Rio would win the next season too, looking that up, but that's neither here nor there.
and it's some of these things, it's like you just you like you said, you knew Bob was
Yeah.
going to win even before you saw Bob's season, and knowing that Bob was the winner, because like Bob is arguably one of the most prominent figures
Oh,
from
yeah.
Drag Race that like has used their platform in very interesting ways. There's a couple of
Like
things.
if like Bob didn't win, I would be like, what are we doing here? Was just
Yeah.
so clearly like, but I mean, honestly, the same way with Bianca Del Rio was like, oh, you are
Sure.
just so clearly head and shoulders above everyone else around you because you are just that much funnier.
I mean,
And
Anya too, for that matter, in terms of
Totally. And
standouts
Saphir
throughout both
Cristal,
seasons.
which you haven't gotten to yet, but that's a there's a couple of things that I wanted to point out. You skipped season 2, which has the winner Tyra Sanchez, but you will never see her or hear about her because she is actually an exiled queen. RuPaul does not acknowledge her. I think the only time we have ever seen her back in connection to Drag Race was when they did like for season 10 they showed like all the winners like through from 1 up until 10, and that was like the last time I think she was probably even on it, like connected to RuPaul. But Tyra Sanchez is kind of a shitty person, and she said a lot of shitty things, both against RuPaul, but then also just kind of like I think about the franchise. But the other thing, I can't wait till you get to the All Stars season, that is All Stars All Winners, and Jinx is on it, and these are not spoilers because she wins.
Yeah.
But they during their snatch game, there's a very funny moment where Jinx references the old theme song that ends with "May the best drag queen" or "May the best woman win," whatever the old one is. And another contestant corrects her and says they changed it to drag queen, and it's really really funny. And you have to text me the second you watch it because it will take you down. It will take you.
I
down.
cannot wait. Like
it's a great
and that's
season.
where I'm so excited for that. But like that's just it. Is like I noticed Tyra doesn't show up, and like they stopped. I think maybe like we're like, and they used to have like, and here's all of the winners to come congratulate you, and now it's like
they won't fit on a stage anymore. That's why.
Right. Like, well, and I mean, I know like Sharon. Like, I didn't watch season 4 because I also know Sharon Needle sucks.
Yeah,
and
she sucks a lot.
She's racist as shit.
Mm-hmm. Out loud. So, let's jump into our topic du jour, chasing Amy. So, Dara, Shauna and I have done a couple of episodes now talking about our connection to Kevin Smith films.
Yes.
But what is yours? How did you come to like chasing Amy, but Kevin Smith's films in general?
Yeah, I mean that's all Shauna's fault.
So for backstory, Dara and I
memoir.
have been dating since we were 16. And
Yeah.
so
And you are now 30 or 40 years old.
30 or 40
Correct.
years old. But yes, so I'm not sure if Chasing Amy was the first Kevin Smith film that we watched together. I feel like it was. I remember being sitting in a uncomfortable rocking chair that was wood at my parents' house watching Chasing Amy on a small television. As my first, I remember it as the first Kevin Smith film, and she was just so pumped for us to watch this. And it was definitely a iconic experience for us and who we were in that moment in time.
Well, especially I think given the backstory of who we were from the outside at the time as well, because this is very obviously pre-transition for both of
Very
us.
eggy of
and
you.
Yes, and so I, like looking at me as I started dating this out lesbian who was then literally, not unlike the movie, shunned from their
It's
friends
true.
for
Mm.
dating me. And
Mm.
so literally the plot of the movie happened in their life.
Yeah.
And
When
One
you
of whom
when you
came
all
out as
first got
trans
together?
also years later. But
Wait,
it's
we talked at
true.
the same time. What did you say, Darren?
oh, I was like one of said cis lesbian friends who also came out as trans masc many years later.
Yeah.
As you
So
do.
what, Dara, were you out
Oh
as a
yeah, I
lesbian?
came.
Okay.
When did? Yeah. So I'm like, I came out as a lesbian 2 years before we started dating, 3 years before we started dating, something like that.
Yeah, so
Huh.
probably if what, eighth grade?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so yeah, so when I met you, I used to think I was the exception, but it turns out I was the rule.
Yeah.
And so yeah.
Yeah.
And so the very
Except, is it
like
really a rule if that's no longer the word that we would use to describe the connection between the two of you? Like, it was the rule at the time, maybe.
Oh yeah. I mean,
yeah,
she's been
exactly.
making
Yeah,
this joke for a couple decades now,
Yeah, it's pretty solid too.
absolutely. Oh
yeah,
yeah,
It's
no,
pretty
I've got it
solid.
like yeah,
and now
yeah,
she's
because we've been
moved
together
on
for
to
over
go
yeah,
on,
being
make your
together for
joke.
over 20 years and four genders.
Yeah.
So
Oh my God.
Which I will make us a cross stitch at some point.
That is truly so fucking gay. And
Yeah.
the cross stitch, once you said cross stitch too, I actually kind of lost whatever I was going to say. And I was like,
Sorry.
God, it just got gayer. Like somehow it got gayer by you saying that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think I've heard you say that, Shauna, that like it ran kind of parallel to your life experiences, but I don't think I really like remembered that while I was watching it. And now like, okay, we should just get into it because I
Yeah.
that scene in particular with Alyssa and her friends is really really really
Yeah.
interesting. I'm not a lesbian, so I have thoughts on it, but I don't have opinions on it. So Shauna, kick us off with the first intro.
okay, so and I honestly, I'm just gonna go off with my kind of so this movie stars is about two comic book, you know, writers and artists. You've got Holden McNeil and Banky Edwards. And so Banky Edwards played by Jason Lee and Holden is played by Ben Affleck. Because when I think of who is going to turn a lesbian into someone who wants to date a man, it's Ben Affleck. And
100%.
Definitely
so
not.
yeah, and then like so they go and they're at this comic book, so let's start off with they're at a comic book convention is where this movie starts, and
I
you
already
kind
have
of get
notes there.
yeah, I'm sure you do. And so we go and are, get to see this kind of really like look into like 90s nerddom, which is so where Kevin Smith is really steeped in this like late
Yeah.
90s, and it's really like shows his like love of the genre, love of that kind of niche fandom that really has come to define both the fans of like his movies and just the properties that exist within them. And so they write Blunt Man and Chronic, the tale of Jay and Silent Bob, but what if they were more than Jay and Silent Bob?
Hmm.
And so
Yeah.
now you meet Alyssa Edwards, who is on a panel with Hooper X.
Wait, her name is not Alyssa Edwards, is it
Or
really?
I'm sorry, no, it's Alyssa Jones. Alyssa
Okay,
Yeah,
Jones.
I was
Alyssa
like,
Jones.
Shauna, what?
Or yeah. Oh
There's
my God,
that
I did
drag
judge that. Oh my
race
God. God
fucking
dang it.
It's
programming. You're
earworms.
welcome. You're welcome. So a couple of things before we like kind of get into the real meat of it, because like the introduction, the comic, blah blah blah, the Comic Con is just kind of fun. Like once they hit the gay bar scene, it's kind of off and running in terms of the plot. But
Yeah.
a couple of my notes. One, someone's wearing a shirt that says "Marvel can suck my cock" during Comic Con, and that was really funny, and I
And
kind of
so
lost it.
very like the big two had so much like antagonism towards
Yeah.
them,
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
like that is like the time of like Image Comics
Yeah.
where like Spawn
Dark
came
Horse.
from, yeah, Todd McFarlane, Dark Horse, like
Yeah.
where there was a lot like the indie comic books were seen as like the meat, and
Yeah.
it was like almost like sellouts for writing for like the big two in some ways, like in
Yeah.
an interesting like where because this is obviously well before the MCU, this is well before um Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man
Yep.
in terms
Yeah.
of like the era, that it came out in.
Yeah. Um, I also never understood the designation between pencils and ink. Like on when I would read the uh, credits in the beginning of the comic books, I just only recently started trying to pay attention to like who my favorite artists are. But the part where he's calling Banky a tracer, I first of all, I think I just like seeing Jason Lee get bullied because he's such a prick. But it was really, really funny to watch it. But the like, I almost like had to pause the fucking movie when they have a minority panel with Alyssa and I know I wrote the
Hooper.
character's name in here
Hooper,
somewhere. Hooper X, yes.
yeah,
Um, and Hooper X is like giving this really impassioned, pro-black separatist, fuck the man speech, and then it gets like really weirdly violent. And I wrote, "Oh God, this scene with the black comic artist, I can't tell if I hate it or if it's dot dot dot." Nope, it got to the black rage part, and it's only 3% funny. Until I realized this man is a sissy. This is a homosexual, and it completely turned
Yep.
my like feeling about that character in that moment 100% around. And I think Banky makes a joke about him sounding like Minister Farrakhan on stage, but the King of Pop off stage. You can't make that joke, Banky, but it was kind of funny. Those are my notes
it
for
was
that
pretty.
first
That's
couple
fair.
scenes.
Yeah, I was like the what's a Nubian is a like
Oh
yeah.
my God, that was a really wild scene. It was definitely, it's
Yeah.
super dated, super
Oh,
dated.
absolutely. It's
Oh,
very
so
dated,
great.
but I think there's something to be said for the way of needing how gay people back in the 90s really needed to hide themselves, how needing to wear this mask of hypermasculinity to fit in and sell your comics. Well,
And
because
especially as a being sort of portrayed as a black activist, like
hmm
black women don't get recognition in progressive movements. To be
Yeah.
a queer black person, or especially a queer black man that didn't fit the sort of hypermasculine archetype, there was no alternative. But yeah, that's how
absolutely.
we get introduced to Alyssa, and they're talking, and Holden, someone says something like, "Oh, how come I've never seen you before?" And her joke is like, "Well, she's like, you're a white guy, so it like lose one of those two, and maybe we can be on the same panel or something." And I was like, "LOL, okay, that's solid." But we get this introduction to Alyssa, which leads us to the gay bar scene. Shauna, can you give us a tell
Yeah.
us about it?
Well, I'll say they're from the same hometown, which so you find that they're actually
Right.
connected to the rest of the Viewisk universe in a way that you didn't necessarily know, because everyone went to the same little area. They all know the characters of Mallrats, and actually, Alyssa Jones is the sister of the girl who wrote the book in Mallrats of the sex book. So she's actually her like older sister.
No wonder she's
Yeah.
such a
Yep.
slut.
They even made a comment like, "You went home to visit your sister, the one with the book deal," is like a line in there.
Your 15-year-old sister that's being backed by a publishing house for her research on statutory essay. Oh,
Yeah. And one of
yeah,
who did that was then also played by Ben Affleck, coincidentally.
wild.
Yeah.
So we get to this gay
But so
bar.
yeah, so we go to the gay
Yeah.
bar as they're invited out because they all hit it off in a way that was kind of nice, and they're there, and Holden thinks he is just absolutely like this girl is very into me. She invited me out, and then Alyssa sings this absolutely beautiful song that is still like in like I
Oh, it's
love
the
the
best.
solo she sings. It's the best. She is feeling it. She is so hot up there, and actually, she's singing it to the girl in front.
Mhm.
And actually, it is
Which,
a somehow a lesbian bar in New
yes.
York
So
City.
as a person who had never seen this but knew the premise, like it's pretty clear right away that it's a gay bar to anyone that
Yeah.
has ever been in a gay bar or anyone that is good at subtlety. Because it's like exclusively women and women of varying sort of presentations. But one of the things that I immediately thought of was a bunch of them are drinking Wicked Ale, that hard cider, that hard apple juice that I don't know if it
Oh,
exists anymore, but I
I
swear to
hope
God,
not, because it was gross.
I don't
the
remember
only
that.
other time I saw Wicked Ale was at Bounce. So like
That's fair.
is
I
it
think I have
just
had a Wicked Ale at Bounce. I'm not even gonna kid myself here.
like is it just a gay people drink? What if
I think it must be.
a cultural phenomenon?
Well, and so then all of a sudden now, shit, she's gay. What do we do? And I
Right, so
think this
she
is
gets
the
off
first
stage
of,
and kisses this woman right away.
yeah, and like the sirens are going off, and he
Yeah.
looks around and he's like, oh, wait. How did I not like it was so in his own head and so in his own world is like the main character of the story that he doesn't even realize he's in a fucking gay bar. Like, great job, Ben Affleck. Nailed it.
Oh, is that song she was singing a
No,
real song?
I don't
no.
know if it is. I think it
It's
was just
not a real
written for.
song because I have on many occasions looked to karaoke it and it does not exist. You can
Got
find
it.
it on YouTube, of course, but it is not a
Sure.
real song.
What were you about to say, Dara? I'm sorry.
Oh, I was like, no, the sirens are going off for Banky, not for Holden, because he
Mm,
immediately starts clapping enthusiastically when he makes the incredibly sexist, misogynist realization of like, oh, it's lesbians. They're for my observation. Yes.
Right. Right. Um
God.
Apparently Joey Lauren Adams wrote that song. It was originally a
Oh, I love
country
that.
song, but Kevin Smith requested they pump it up a bit. I just
Hmm.
looked at it on trivia.
Oh,
Um, the one of the other things I loved was Alyssa's sheer top black bra combo. So
yes.
fucking cute. She looks
Classic.
so fucking cute. She's just her voice does tinge on something in my ear a little bit, but I can get past it. It's not like something that like takes me out of the moment. But her and then they get into the booth and they start having this wild conversation between the three of them, and Holden is being peak straight man, realizing that he's not going to get what he wants. But there are so there's a whole part where Banky talks about not eating girls out because women just don't tell you what to do. What?
Well, and
What?
I think it really speaks to the
Be
ultimate
more of an
conclusion of
incel.
the movie.
Yes.
Be
Yes.
more of a
Yes.
fucking closeted gay
Yeah.
man who is nowhere
Yes.
near able to come to terms with that fact.
So
And
there is
also, the girl that he is doing in that story, Brandy Svenning, who is the one of the protagonists of Mallrats, and Michael Rooker, the father, is the one who came in and injured him.
yes. Um I I couldn't remember who you had said ended up gay, and I know it's actually like in another movie where they say like he ended up,
Yeah.
but like it first gives incel, like, putting it in 2025 context, like
Oh, yeah.
watching that, you're like, yeah, it's definitely the women's fault that you don't go down on women, you fucking incel. But then, like shortly into his obsession, which is, we'll kind of get to it in a moment, but his obsession with the relationship between um, Alyssa and Holden,
Yeah.
it's immediately clear. So yeah, if you want to, oh my god, I have other notes about the booth conversation.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah,
they don't
please.
they talk about virginity, but I don't really remember. Oh, is that part? Okay, anyways,
Yeah, because
um,
they're comparing scars.
yes. And they have a conversation about like what is sex and what
Well,
isn't,
and that's
and
then the
Yeah.
next, like you said, yeah, you said fuck to that girl, like, and that was where this concept,
yes,
but again, this very 90, again, and here we are 30 years later, and it's really easy to be like, oh,
Yeah.
actually, like, I see
how silly of
how
you,
far we've come,
Yeah.
but
right?
also where, like, those questions were legitimate questions that people were asking in the 90s of like, what does sex actually mean to these two parties? And I kind of love that she was like, well, like there's all these different ways to think about it, and like of course then the most the and I just
Like
like, which is
Who?
just like,
Like what?
I think I was again like and I think it just goes to show
Yeah.
how, despite its best things, this was still a film written by a straight man.
I
But with that
literally
being like
wrote in
an
all caps in
imperfect
my
ally, if
notes,
you will.
is
Yeah.
she talking about being into fisting?
But not
Absolutely.
just fisting.
Yeah,
Fisting where you do a little jazz hands.
like a
That's
Puppet.
hand puppet. Hello, my baby. Hello, my darling. I'm just fisting
You
you.
boys.
yeah.
Yeah, that's Sabrina Carpenter's actually sequel. Yeah.
Right. Chasing Sabrina.
But
Um,
so yeah, so they have this great then talk because now they're like, oh, we actually need to talk about this. And so it really starts then the actual beginning of Holden's friendship with Alyssa as they kind of start to actually understand each other and to have conversations. And Holden gets his worldview expanded, which again,
oh,
like going back to the high school analogy between Dara and I, Dara was very expanding to my worldview
mhm,
and was very, like helps me understand all sorts of things that I did not know until I met Dara.
yeah,
And that really helped broaden my horizons on so many levels and ways. And like I really can appreciate that, like, oh, I just didn't have anyone to ask these questions. I didn't have the situation that would have made
No.
me ask the question in the first place. Because you
mhm,
just assume, again, it goes back to the standard. And I think you see that even going into today, how many people get focused on, well, that's not the standard, as though
right.
that is the only
Mhm.
the
All
reason
these,
why we do. Yeah,
all the discourse around Billie Eilish is dating a man, apparently. Jojo Siwa, who, please don't make me come to the defense of Jojo Siwa, but like
Oh
she came
God.
out as
Yeah.
gay, but then has been dating this guy that she met on television, and there's a lot of other things, packed into
right.
both of those
Well,
conversations. But like Jesus Christ, they're also like 20 something years old. Let them figure their shit out, you weirdos.
Yeah.
and again, just like in those stories and in this movie, I really wish someone had ever heard of the word bisexual.
Right. Right.
Because I think if the word bisexual existed in their world verse, it would be
Hmm.
a much different movie. However, it's like, well, no, you're straight or gay, you pick a side. Like it's like Romeo
Literally.
and Juliet, like the
Well, but I think it's
Strapulets and the Mon.
the Mounticus.
There we
Sorry.
go.
We got there. Um, no, but I think it's so different watching it now with the nostalgia that I have for it, but also through the lens of what it was then, because like it didn't feel toxic in any of the ways that it's so blatantly has all kinds of toxic issues about it, even with the nostalgia that I have for it. But we're looking at it through a totally different lens now. There
Yeah.
And it's
wasn't
also very
yeah,
revolutionary too in that
of
same way, like
course.
where it was like,
Oh
oh
my
my
gosh, yeah.
gosh, like it was so ahead of its time in a way that we didn't really realize at
That's
the
why we have
time
nostalgia
either.
for it. Like,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I mean, one of the things that I wrote is like, first of all, she's so fucking patient in that conversation. Like, I don't know how, in the first time, and I guess that also speaks to what was required of us. Like, even as a person who's been a queer trainer, like I have my limit on when I will continue to investigate or like participate in conversations. And that limit is
oh
different in
yeah,
personal conversations. Like, I don't mind going a little bit further with people who are, curious and it's part of the conversation, but like it's like interrogative the way that they are grilling her
yes,
on what it means to be queer and to be a lesbian. And um we get this, so after they meet and they hang out and blah blah blah, and Holden is convinced that he's gonna fuck this girl until he finds out she's a lesbian, and then they start hanging out, and we have this like actually kind of like really cute fun montage of them being
yeah,
friendly, which is then ruined by Holden's profession of love in a car in the rain, and it is so fucking pathetic. I'm so sorry. It is the most
yeah.
pathetic thing. And I think at one point it was like, it kind of gave impassioned when it started, but then it just got really fucking desperate. And I was like, whoa, dude, have some respect for yourself. Like, yikes. And I
Have
wish
some
what would have
respect for
happened,
her.
have some
Yeah,
Like,
respect for her. first and foremost, have some respect for the thing that you know to be true about her. Your feelings are not more important than her experience, which I wish more people understand, is that sometimes you can fucking hold your feelings for a little bit for the sake of the other person. And I wish what would have happened is he confessed and then she was like, I'm gay, and then the credits roll. Like, that should have been the end of the fucking movie, is her being like, I'm gay, and then nothing else happens. But unfortunately, fortunately.
Well, but again, and it's like, well, but actually, even though she's been only exclusively having, living the life of a lesbian, and I think that's, again, there's such as very much, I think she is the description of a bisexual lesbian, like in the way of because she has both had, as we will find out, has had these past experiences before Holden, and now Holden has turned out to be the exception that is actually like, oh, I actually can love someone like this again or find attraction in someone like this again. And that despite her all of her friend circle, she lives a very queer life. Again, that difference between sexuality and where queerness can really come in is she's living the life where her community, her job, it is all very much a part of herself and her, it's all interwrapped together.
Yeah.
And so
there's a couple of other things in the profession of love that I wanted to touch on. He says, I would risk this friendship to take it to the next plateau. And I just wrote, bitch, what the fuck? One of his lines that he says is, I am forever changed by who you are and what you've meant to me. This is almost an exact line in the song For Good. And I cannot wait for the two of you to see the second half of Wicked and come back to this episode and be like, oh, Christ. It's almost verbatim. It is almost verbatim. But there is a line that Alyssa says, a critique that I have said before is that Kevin Smith's movies are a little overwritten. Every scene includes at least 3 to 4 monologues. And in her monologue, in response to him, she says, it's unfortunate that you are in love with me, but it's unfair that you felt the need to unburden your fucking soul to me.
Yeah.
Yes, you are allowed to be sad about the fact that you fell in love with me and I am a lesbian, but you did not have to fucking do this. That was really unfair. You knew that it would put me in a weird position, and look what you did. I just thought that line was great.
Well, and then in What is a Surprise, after running off, she then rushes right back. They make out, go
in the
have
rain,
sex,
which kind of I was in both in the romantic in me is like, oh, I love kissing in the rain, and then the other part of me is like, fucking corny,
the media user in you is like, really?
Yes, yeah, exactly.
And so
yeah, they go from the rain
and
to fucking
now they are everywhere, and
So the thing that I was gonna get at is, after they kiss in the rain, the next scene is them having sex, and they wake up the next morning and Banky comes into the apartment, and literally he sees them in bed together and drops his coffee and runs out, and it's so fucking faggy. It is so, oh no, I thought my best friend that was maybe also sort of in love with me is actually still straight. Oh no. Yeah, girl, we all been there. We all been there. And then they have this okay, sorry. I haven't looked at the
No, you're fine.
Well, and so then they're going, and it's all going well, but Banky very jealous of this, and he's been jealous of their friendship for a while, and so now obviously is only that much more, and does some digging, goes to the quick stop, and finds out that, oh, this girl from our hometown actually does have a past, and finds that she has the nickname Finger Cuffs.
Which we'll get to the explanation here shortly, but a couple of things in I don't even know how important it is, but there is a line when they're talking outside of the apartment after he catches them, after he sees them in bed together. First and foremost, where the fuck are they in whatever city, New York City, I'm assuming, because they're from
They're in
Jersey.
New
Yeah.
Jersey.
They're in New
No,
Jersey.
they're
They're in
in
New Jersey.
Jersey. They had to
Okay,
go back
got
because
it.
they make a comment how they have to go back through the tunnel.
Got it. Oh, right. But they're out in the morning and like no one is on the street. I'm like, what the fuck? How a coffee shop is open, but no one is on the street doing anything. Okay, got it. But another nod to him definitely being queer is how he like has to make a weird comment about the Catholic schoolgirls that are waiting for their bus, and they're definitely teenagers, and he's definitely a full-grown adult. But when he's kind of posing this idea that Banky is looking out for Holden, and he says something like to ensure all the years we spent building together aren't a waste. And then Holden kind of responds, assuming he's talking about the comic, and Banky says, "I'm not talking about the comic, bro."
Yeah.
I'm gonna hold your hands when I say this. You want your best friend to fuck you, and that's okay. That's okay. You're gay.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least this new term that some of us are learning, bisexual.
Well, and
I don't think
it's
that
also
exists. And
it's also weird watching a film that is so queer, but time period queer, where everything was genital essentialist and very cisgender.
Yeah.
And I think of both the bar conversation, the conversation about fisting with jazz hands on the swing, any number of the ways that like they actually have, sex ultimately. It's also like, yeah, dykes can want some dick. Like gay guys can also be down for eating someone out. Like there's a range of genders and genitals that intersect. Like,
and it
but
doesn't make you and a one off or whatever off does not change one's orientation either, and that you do not need to
no,
define yourself by the entirety of the breadth of experiences you've had or
yeah,
will have.
We're looking at you, faggots that still call yourselves Gold Star. Like, it doesn't matter that you've
toxic.
never had sex with a woman. Like, who cares? You're not any. I promise you, I have had. I've explored the spectrum of genders and genitals, and I'm not any less quote gay than anybody else that's just touched cis wieners. Like, honey,
Mm-hmm.
actually, I
True.
think I'm way gayer because I've danced along the spectrum of people to fuck.
Well, and
So
isn't
in
that in
my
many ways exactly the argument that I think then like Alyssa makes about it all? Is like, I've been through this and I know, like, oh, like,
yeah,
Yeah.
yes, she does point that out too. Like, this is not, uh I don't even remember what she says, but like that exact point that like I do know who I am. Well, you thought you did, which again should also be a comment
mhm,
to everyone in terms of their own exploration of their sexual identity is like you've only had the experiences you've had until you have a new experience. And just because
mhm,
you haven't had it doesn't mean that it might not be of interest. But the next sort of sequential part is the scene where she's talking to her friends, and they kind of call her out because she's been missing, like she hasn't been around with the gang in a
Yeah.
while, and she is trying to avoid identifying that she is dating a man. And so she keeps saying like that. I think she uses like gender neutral pronouns and says
Yeah.
this person, and it's very, very something. And one of the friends in the circle says, "Why are you playing the pronoun game?" And I want to be like, 2025, this is meta commentary. This is
yeah.
Yeah.
meta commentary in
You
some kind
might
of
not
way.
get this now, but your kids are gonna love it.
And all of those women, you cannot style straight women as queer as well as the women in that scene or the people in that scene were styled. Those are all lesbians. Every single person in that scene is a lesbian.
Actually, a great backstory that we found out during a wonderful documentary called Chasing Amy
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
is
mm-hmm.
that the lesbians in that scene are from a similar 1990s black and white comedy that aired at the same time as Clerks, that was in
Yeah.
the same indie scene circle. And so they were all like lesbian filmmakers from that era, like
Yeah,
like some, at least some of those women
they
were.
were connected
Yeah.
to the other film. Yeah,
And so they were
I
like
love
friends
that.
with and helped inform the story and why Kevin Smith had these kind of experiences and knowledge base to write this story. Because this is a story based on him and his relationship with Joey Lauren Adams, the titular Alyssa Jones.
Okay, so quick timeout. What? And second of all, um, the what you were saying about the realism of these scenes when one of them says another one bites the dust in reference to
Mm-hmm.
Alyssa dating a man, like that is
yeah,
very, very real. Um, my proximity to women loving women circles, lesbian circles, and even
yeah.
just as a queer person, like who is aligned with the gay male community, like there is this almost idea of betrayal. It's a lot different for cis gay men because their shit is much more toxic. But I think for cis lesbians, that idea of like, and I don't know, this is my own, maybe, I don't know if it's my place to observe, but I think an observation that I have is like the way that women are often required to protect each other, especially in queer spaces. Like this idea, not that we like lost a lesbian, but that we kind of like lost a member of this like protective, sacred community that, um,
The
you know,
sisterhood.
this, but yeah, it was it that I think that might have been one of my favorite scenes in the show or in the movie because it felt so real, and now we know that it is real. So wait, Kevin Smith and Joey Lauren Adams dated? What is
Oh
this?
yeah,
And
absolutely.
he
So
was very
they
insecure about how well traveled she was.
Yeah,
Oh,
and so it was based off of he was Ben Affleck in this, and he
uh-huh.
was definitely the person who lost, this really great love, and was in the process of dealing with that while they were filming Chasing Amy together. And
Ooh,
so all of that is in that movie.
I really got to watch Chasing
Yeah,
Chasing Amy. I'm sure that's
You really
more.
it's very
do.
good.
It's so good,
Yeah,
especially seeing like the two of them talk about it and how like naive he was and how foolish he was. And they come because at the end of the day, he was not right. And the movie is written that Ben Affleck Holden is not right, just as Kevin Smith wasn't right.
yeah,
Yeah.
And there's definitely that element. And oh, also speaking of that betrayal and that way that lesbian circles, like, and going back to the experience that Dara and I had when they were in high school and when we were in high school, and also the way that you see that same kind of betrayal is how trans men are often treated.
Hmm.
And I think it really informs a lot of that's those same elements of betrayal. Like we are, trans women are treated as these usurpers, but like there's a like almost feels like you're turning your back on the sisterhood and you are leaving us for the world of men is
Hmm.
very similar in the same exact like ways.
I hear that
yeah,
totally. A couple of other things. Everybody loves smoking in this movie and in just cool
yeah.
90s movies in general. And God, it made me miss smoking cigarettes for like 13 seconds. Like I know that it's bad and the talking points were always that smoking is not cool, but I looked cool smoking cigarettes. People can look cool smoking cigarettes. Cigarettes can make you look cool. I don't give a fuck what anyone says. So it did make me smoke a bunch of weed. I literally wrote in all caps, everybody loves smoking and it makes me miss smoking kinda, so I'll just smoke weed. And that's what I did.
That's
Um,
fair. That's why I like
but then they
joints.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It hits the same fix. But in one of the post coitus scenes, there's this blue lighting. It's very fucking like, again, figuring out Kevin Smith's directorial style and like perhaps leaning a little too much into certain styles or tropes or whatever. But
Yeah.
she has this. She kind of reveals how she got to the point where she is comfortable, sort of dating Holden. And she talks about, I think this may be what we were referencing earlier, like she came to it in her own terms.
Mhm.
But it was one of the monologues, and I wrote, I can't tell if it was overwritten or overacted. Like,
See, I think that monologue for me, I see where they're going with it. but I actually don't think that the content is her owning it properly.
Yeah.
That she is saying it from a place of regret in a way that I think is
or
kind
lament,
of shitty.
maybe.
Regret, lament, like, I did this and I am still okay and valid. And like she's almost trying to convince herself.
Oh, well, that's the next one. That's after he confronts her at the hockey game, which again, what is with him and fucking bringing up emotional shit in real fucking shit times and places, because my god.
Yes. So before we get to that parking lot scene and the hockey scene, we have this great interaction with Hooper X and Banky. And first and foremost, he clocks Banky being in love with Holden, and Banky does not have a reaction.
Of course he does.
Like, there's no moment where he's like, man, don't say that. I'm not gay. I'm not in love with him. He just like kind of just like, no, that can't be true. And then just like lets it slide. Like, what are you talking about? A gay man telling you, a straight man, that you are definitely gay would create much more of a response than what happened there. And even if you were actually gay, it would probably be worse. Yeah, exactly.
Unless he's come just far enough to the truth that to give any air to it, even in opposition, would be too much.
Yeah.
It would combust.
So other notes just about Hooper X, because I didn't know that character, because I don't think he exists in any of the other movies.
Well, he does. He is in at the end of Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
When?
With Banky.
When they're all watching the movie, and him and Banky are there together as a couple.
Yeah. I do remember that. I now need to like go back and watch it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that they think, maybe in like, but yeah, that is where it ultimately goes, is that he actually does come to terms with his own sexuality and finds his own love interest, which is Hooper, and they are now comic book writers together.
So, there's like this little interaction between Hooper X and a young black kid, where he's clearly like indoctrinating him into this sort of radical mentality. And I don't know if it's supposed to, I don't know what it is supposed to inspire in the viewer. But for me, I was like, fuck yeah. Like, fuck the man. Don't talk to white people, as I'm talking to two of my favorite whites. But obviously, the thing that I like about Hooper X is that a lot of his conversations or comments were actually kind of mirroring my own internal monologue out as I was watching it, like, almost in real time. But he does do this gross anti-lesbian rant that I was like, all right, and here's where the similarities stop. It was just gross. But then we get to the hockey scene where Shauna, if you want to prime us or whatever.
Holden has been now grappling with this, like, there's this like yearbook comment, this guy Rick Darris, who's again in the beginning, he's in Clerks, he's the guy who Caitlin Bree is on and off like had flings with in high school, and is like a real jerk of a slut kind of in the way that he in that very 90s guy way. And so they were talking about him and Coey London. That was the other guy's name. Just like Alyssa, it took me a sec to come to. And so they're going, and Holden, as you do when you're out in public, starts talking about this clearly very potentially emotional situation. Because again, if this whole thing is not like, if there's more to it, why are you having this conversation in a fucking public stadium? And so, and there's a literal fight happening, and again, I love, this is where Kevin Smith's filmmaking I really love, and going back to like how that was in the bar scene, where the fight is echoing the like the ebbs and flows of their conversation, and it's so well done. It is
also a little heavy-handed. Like, it is well done. I like it, but I'm just like, okay, we get it. The fight is escalating, and the fight is escalating.
That is Kevin Smith. It is, again, it's 3 lines of dialogue too much. It's a little more heavy-handed in its imagery to make sure you really got there, because at the end of the day, have you seen these fucking nerds? They need the extra hand.
That is true.
Just saying.
So it goes into a full-blown fight, and then they go into the parking lot and basically break up. But there's a bunch of good shit that happens in between. I actually started my own little like paragraph indent under the parking lot breakup scene. So I didn't feel one of the things that I didn't particularly, I struggled with is Ben Affleck is not a great actor. Joey Lauren Adams is acting a little too much, and their energies are not matched. So Alyssa is fully spiraling out, and Holden's just like, what the heck? Which is like not inaccurate, I guess. As
if anything, actually, that's probably one of Ben Affleck's best acting jobs, because that is exactly how a cis white straight man would act in the situation. Like, oh, I understand.
Correct.
I don't know why my saying this traumatizing thing in a public place would cause this reaction.
So I said this scene where she's telling him about her sex stories, I don't like that she's losing her shit, and he's just like, I'm mad the acting talent is not matched, and he's not in the same moment as her, which, I mean, she also clearly has a lot of trauma that is all spilling out, but I wasn't kind of wild where she's talking about all these sexual exploits, and she says something at a certain point of like, do you think I would have let that happen if I didn't want them to? And I didn't like that a lot, because
that's fair.
It does. There is a narrative to be had about the experiences that Alyssa talks about that I think are related to pressure on young girls, and how like young women are pressured into sex and often pressured into thinking that they are enjoying something, but it's really for the enjoyment of the man. And there's also this commentary on sort of like, this is maybe a far leap, but in a world where corrective sexual assault, where people think you can fix a queer person by having sex with them against their will, or that they will eventually come to enjoy it, like, it felt a little baked in there, but not the surface level text. To me, it was bringing up these like uncomfortable feelings of like, we are talking about sex and consent along the gender and sexuality spectrum in a way that makes it not, again, it doesn't have the nuance that I wish that it would have in 2025. In 1990, whatever, when this comes out, it is kind of progressive that this young woman is fucking whoever she wants and has fucked whoever she wants, and now she knows what she wants, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, and I think that there's something to be said for her very, like, absolute disagreement that she was the victim in it. And I think that is fair, because at the end of the day, I think that is, if that was her takeaway of like, actually, it was not cool and it was not on the up and up, that is a fair and valid reaction. And I can see that story, and like, and I don't want to take away from those very real life situations that happen, because that is a real situation. But at least in this fictional story, she is very much, at least, like, this was like what I wanted, because I was, this,
curious,
kinky, perverted teenager who wanted to engage promiscuous, like more promiscuous than, like perverted in not a negative way, but like in a, like, just like, I want to do all the like crazy things because I want to do them. And like, how dare you tell me that I was taken advantage of? If anything, like, they help, they fulfilled what I like, co-opting that narrative of her just being this like girl who's taken advantage of. Is, I think there's something fair to say, and if anything, really speaks to Alyssa's story generally, of like, whether it's choosing to be a lesbian and live amongst other queer women, whether it's choosing to then be with Holden despite that. These are all her choices, and the important, God, did we really run it all right back to Sabrina Carpenter?
Right. I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking the same thing when I was talking about like this young blonde woman, who is the archetype for purity, and full circle. I don't remember what it is in reference to, but at the end of that scene, I have a note that says the way that Banky came out like a fucking next morning bottom. Like, I don't remember what the scene is, but I think he like comes out of his bedroom or something and he just looks like a bottom that got railed and comes out the next morning like, oh, because he's so satisfied because they broke up. That's what it was.
Yeah.
But then we have this diner scene with Jay and Silent Bob. It's the cameo of Jay and Silent Bob. It gives us a insight into where the title of the movie comes from, Chasing Amy, because Kevin Smith as Silent Bob delivers a monologue about how he was in this exact same situation, which is now wild to know that he was actually in that exact same situation and then wrote that he was in that exact same situation in a movie about that exact same situation that he wrote.
Where the character will ultimately write a work of art about the situation that he was in.
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah, but
just a couple of other notes about everyone's favorite stoners. I love how Jay uses nooch as an emphasis. Like he does a long nooch kind of drawn out one. But the casual use of faggot by Jay feels so much less like internalized homophobia than when Banky says it. Like Jay saying faggot, I was like, shut up, Jay. Like, yeah, you made your point. It was kind of funny, but like, you know, you're not supposed to say that. Like, don't say that. Banky saying it makes you want to hem him up by his fucking throat and
Banky
feel like
saying
you need to
it
love
was
yourself.
so many of my friends in my 20s saying it when they would get angry in video games. And I would be, you know, even like they're saying it at the other team who can't hear them or maybe even sometimes can, you know, or typing it out at them in that way. And like how much I experienced that. Like,
Well,
absolutely.
People, of
like,
course, ship Jay and Silent Bob, too.
Sure. Oh, I still do.
Yeah.
They're perfect together.
Yeah.
And then we get to the couch conversation between...
Which is... Why was that the option? Is like when I think of... This is the perfect example of why so many times in movies... But why was that the option? And...
Sean, I wish you could see my notes.
Because did you think that was where it was going?
I was like, they just need to have a three-way. Like, I promise you that's what I was thinking. And then it happening, my notes are in all caps. So, like, my first notes are when Banky makes a comment about Alyssa being, like, a slut or whatever. Holden says, like, you need to shut the fuck up and you can never talk about her that way ever again. That actually, I was like, ooh, Holden. Okay, that's kind of hot. Like, work. You should have had that energy a long fucking time ago, but here we are.
Yeah.
But the fact that he does it and he's I all caps, oh my god, he's giving the "you're in love with me" speech. And then, oh my god, they're talking about a three-way. Oh my god, this three-way needs to happen. Like,
yeah.
Sure, why was that the option? But Shauna, why wouldn't it be the option if we're being honest?
That's, you know, that's
sometimes
fair.
you just gotta fuck your friends.
Okay, I guess maybe why was it the option at that point?
Right. Like,
perhaps after being like oh, I just need to get on your level. And I was like, okay, but like why, like maybe, but like I get where you feel very
town to get on level. Like if you need to...
Right. Go fuck a bunch of random people.
Yeah.
Go have
like,
unique
is one
sexual
threesome really going to fix you? Because I don't know that it is. Like, if that's really like, well, sure, you've had X, Y, and Z experiences, but this one threesome will be like, that's not how it's going to work, man.
Yeah.
Like, it is not going to
someone
be
should
enough.
have said that to me at 17. You think this one threesome's going to fix you?
And also, like, continuing the proposition, not paying any attention to her face either. Because like Alyssa is like making the like, no, this is the worst thing ever, like holding her face during, and he's still just going on. He's like, yeah, I got this plan.
And also that she would want to have sex with this very homophobic friend of like who's been nothing but shitty to her.
Friend that's been a piece of shit. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I do really love. I said the way that she's quietly responding to this is much more appropriately acted than anything else. Like the calmness about her when she says, "No, I'm not going to do it," after Banky, like the homosexual that he is, automatically agrees to it. but I like her speech, except that it's kind of conservative in a weird way. Like, oh, once
Mm.
you meet the right man, it'll all go away. But I don't know. I don't remember what that was in reference to.
Whereas, like, I don't need to do these things anymore. Like, I was like, maybe you
Right,
don't need to. Like, yeah, but it was like a little, again, like, it just was like, none of this was really the, like,
right. But I am obsessed with everyone knowing that Banky is gay. Like Alyssa being like, "Yeah, you're fucking gay, by the way." Like, you know who
yeah, you
knows
win.
people are
He's
gay?
yours.
Oh, that was so good.
So shady.
Such a good
So
line.
perfectly just like,
Yeah.
yeah, God.
Okay, so the final scene, the elevator kid. I don't remember what that is in reference to. Is there another escalator kid stuck in the escalator joke at the end of it?
Oh, well, I mean, no, it's the sailboat kid, because
Yeah.
Ethan Suplee plays in at the end.
What is the elevator kid? I don't remember what that means.
I don't
Well, in
know what elevator
Mallrats,
kid
there's
is.
the kid stuck in the escalator, but I don't.
Right,
Well,
I thought
and
there
then
was
Yeah.
there's the guy who couldn't see the sailboat, who talks
right.
about the way that like you draw boobs. I just love them, like, and like they're so realistic, like because now Jason Lee has his own like comic Baby Huey or some fucking shit, and he was like the way you draw like those most real boobs. I love it, man. Like,
Um the so we're in this final scene that is like another convention-esque thing, and Holden and Banky see each other across the room because none of them are connected anymore. Holden and Banky, we find out, have gone their separate ways. And obviously Alyssa and Holden have stayed broken up. And there's this moment where Holden and Banky see each other across the room and start making like hand signals at each other. And I didn't know if it was supposed to be weird and like
Yeah.
right, like was I supposed to follow what they were saying?
I have no
No, okay,
idea.
got
Like,
it.
I have
I
no
didn't
idea.
follow it. Like
Got it.
I have watched that movie many a time, as seen by the fact that I have not had the like how
Right.
this movie goes, and I'm like, oh well, then of course we go to this scene, and then the
Right.
Yeah.
because this is one of the movies that I've probably seen the most in my life is
First
Chasing
five
Amy.
spots for
I
me.
love this stupid movie so
Yeah.
much
And
because I love you,
the
and not in a friend way, though we make very great friends.
the way that they don't see each other, it's like I wrote, oh my god, the idea of not seeing someone you dated for over a year and having no idea what's going on in their life, what a novel fucking concept. Like, holy shit, I forgot there was
Yeah.
a point in time where you just, once your ex was out of your ex was out of your life, and then you just never saw them again or knew what happened. Like, I guess that's still true in many ways, but like, damn, that seems like a pleasant way to live. Not
Yeah.
that
I
I like
mean,
don't want to see my
oh,
All right. No, but like, except for the fact that he still wrote a whole comic book about it, and then was like, "Here you go. I've been drawing you." That's a normal
that's
thing,
not super weird.
and
right.
it's definitely you, and it's definitely me. No artistic license here, my friend. It is
Your
us.
name and
I'm
everything.
telling everybody. It was just,
And
oh
it
yeah, and I'm making money off of it. Not much, but I'm still like, it's weird.
right. But the final part, like my literal last note is, so you know she's with a woman again. She's uh they have this little interaction between Holden and Alyssa, and then I think either after Holden leaves or something, her girlfriend comes back, and they they kind of establish that they are dating by way of like how they talk to each other.
Yeah.
That girlfriend's I wrote that girlfriend sucks, and then in parentheses at acting. Like, it wasn't it wasn't great. It was really hard to
No.
believe that they were a couple, and also boo. That's my last note on this movie, is that the new girlfriend sucks at acting. Closing
Yeah.
thoughts. Closing thoughts on Chasing Amy before we get to the most important part of the show.
I mean, I think my closing thought is just there are some media that we all have really great nostalgia for. Um, like just like I think this is the movie Sean has probably seen the most. You know that I don't know that if it's the one I've seen the most, but it's definitely top five.
Yeah.
Um, like we've watched it a lot, but it's not the best queer media out there by any means. But at the time when it came out, like you had to go into some pretty like niche art spaces to find a film that had as much representation as it did.
It was
Yeah.
probably the first gay movie I ever watched.
Yeah,
Honestly.
I
And it was the
Ooh,
first
that's a
time
good
really
question.
seeing gay people on screen in that way.
Mm.
Because I never watched like Will and Grace kind of stuff because that really wasn't me. But so getting to see that in that kind of way was very, I mean, what year did Ellen come out? Like
Late
the Ellen
97?
episode.
Yeah. When did Ellen come out
Let's see.
on her show? 97.
1997, which is also the same year that Chasing Amy came out.
Interesting.
And it's, to your point around like what I think we have talked about, like it can't be all things to all people, but for some people raised at a certain time and a certain experience, it is a very important film in the same way to me. Tu Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, Love Julie Newmar, which is probably the first gay movie that I ever saw. Like that, aside from it having Stockard Channing, that had some of the most like pivotal moments of
Yeah.
my like queer understanding. And that when you said that, Shauna, that made me. That's like a great question. What is the first gay movie you ever saw, Dara? Do you think it was
But
that
I'm
one?
a cheerleader. I
Oh,
saw it
okay.
in an art theater with my first girlfriend. Canon.
Gay.
Super canon.
Gay,
Oh, so
gay, super gay.
incredible. So fucking gay. Saw it the year it came out.
Well,
Date myself hard.
when thinking Dara's parents were very surprised when I was the one.
Yeah,
In that kind of funny way.
uh,
But also
uh,
just gosh, thinking about God, but I'm a cheerleader. No, but
yeah,
those
and like,
experiences and Tu Wong Fu, I'm I think that Patrick Swayze's character is absolutely a proto-trans woman.
sure,
In
oh
totally.
the
yeah,
way that they've talked about her was again, and it's in that same way of the going back again to our beginning conversation in the way that drag and transness were in many ways overlapping and intersecting.
Yeah,
And to go out dressed as a woman is to be in drag versus today's modern definition, which is to say to go out in drag is to perform as
right,
a different or more exaggerated gender.
right.
Or I should say, yeah, it's to perform gender, not necessarily a
Yes,
different. It's to perform gender
perform gender. Right,
versus
yeah.
just to be if going to the mall is going out in drag,
right.
which is how it was
We
in the
all do it.
90s and 2000s. Right.
Right. So, Dara, go ahead. You were going to say something.
No, I'm trying to, because there was like a notorious evening where my friends and I got every gay movie we could get out of the library, and I'm trying to remember what the third one was because it was Hedwig and Quills and something else, and I can't remember what the third one was.
I've never even heard of quills before.
It's more BDSM than anything, and it's more queer adjacent.
Got it. So, we are at the important part of the show where we ask a couple of questions. Before we get to the pivotal question, something that came up in I don't remember if it was a previous conversation that we've had or if it was in another podcast that I've listened to, but what piece of nerd memorabilia would you steal from this movie? Like if it were
Well,
real,
it's not the
what would you
movie
take?
poster.
The Chasing Amy movie poster?
It's a terrible poster. It's just, and
Oh,
Shauna
I
had this
got
on her
a
wall.
sweet gift, and it was this giant, 4 or 5 feet tall poster of just Joey Lauren Adams' head.
well, yeah, I remember being in Blockbuster and seeing the Chasing Amy cover, and maybe it was just like gay, not gay, like ESP. But I always looked at it and be like, I kind of want to see that movie. Like as a young person, I have a
Yeah.
memory of
Mm.
seeing that big ass picture of Joey Lauren Adams.
Okay, so
What?
I think I'm
Yeah, what are
between
twos?
a couple things, though, to your actual question. I
Mm-hmm,
think it's either going to be the painting that Alyssa buys for Holden,
The sailboat.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
or it's maybe a comic book of
Yeah,
Bluntman and Chronic or something like that.
yeah,
I think that would be kind of cool to have one of their Banky's hat is a
sure.
weird kind
His
of
tango hat.
yeah, or Ben Affleck's goatee.
Uh huh. Uh
No,
huh.
no,
Important. Dara, is there one that you would take?
I think it's probably the sailboat from the diner for me too.
Yeah,
But I also just like love art from media,
yeah.
like paintings that are in the background of things and like making them is fun.
Mm.
Yeah, I think I would steal like the pack of cigarettes that Holden smokes, like just for the sake of having those.
Alyssa's
Now the
outfit while
most.
dancing.
This is what.
Or while singing.
Yeah.
Alyssa's outfit while singing.
Oh
Like,
yeah, that's
Oh
the
yeah.
piece that I want. I want
Yeah.
Alyssa's top and bra combo. So this is not a very hard question. Dara, who is the hottest character in Chasing Amy?
Alyssa's girlfriend during the singing scene.
You are both so funny. All right,
I was
I'll
gonna
take
say
it.
Kim. I was gonna
Yeah.
say Kim. I was like fucking
Yeah,
that
it's
short
Kim.
blonde hair
It's
girl
Kim.
in the fucking
Yeah.
white shirt. Oh, she's so fucking hot.
She's got the 7 of 9 hair.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
like, clearly the woman. I was like, you know what? Or Ben Affleck. No,
It's
you
not
fucking
Ben
go
Affleck.
after that girl. Obviously, all day, any day. She's so much fucking hotter.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
And
I
like the
mean, mine
way
is
that like Alyssa like fucking like scruffs up the back of her head, like when they're like, it's Kim all day.
yeah. I think mine is Alyssa. I don't know. Like, I want to say
Good
Hooper
answer.
X
Don't
out
get
of
me wrong.
Solidarity, but like, he's not. I don't find him attractive. I think he's my favorite, like, B
He's the most attractive
character.
guy.
Sure. Ben Affleck did have something in the 90s. Like, I see it.
No,
I
he was
see.
attractive in that movie. He was attractive in that movie.
I
Like
see
we're
how
giving
they
him
wanted
shit,
us
but
to be attracted to him, but I can't say that I was. But so actually, I am going to say Hooper X because I think his politics were the hottest. Like, and I'm going to be honest, if your
Yeah.
politics suck, I don't think you're attractive. So
Yeah.
so it's not Banky.
it's not Banky.
No.
So we will wrap up our episode there. You can follow us at Real Hot Nerd Pod on Instagram, at Helen Pastels on Blue Sky, at Intuitive Blurred on Blue Sky. Dara, anything you want to push? You are kind of like an important queer person. So is there anything that you want to say?
Yeah, I mean, I don't use my personal socials publicly
Yeah.
anymore. But yeah, if people want to help some trans folks in Ohio, Trans Ohio on all socials, we've got lots of good free legal services, mutual aid, and good harm reduction going all around.
Amen. Thank you for your hard work, especially right now because I am proximal to it or tangential to it, and I don't know how you do it other than having wonderful people around you.
It is helpful to have, yeah.
Yeah. We will be back. I believe our next installment. So we're filming this on June 17th. Ironheart comes out next week, and I think that's what we should do for our next run of episodes is the Ironheart series. So stay tuned for that. But thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye, gang. All right, y'all, we hit some technical difficulties, so we're going to end this recording here, and we'll pick up in part 2. See you there.